So, first of all, lovely to see you all for those who I can see within the audience. Blinding lights. It's really nice to be able to be here. I'm going to be going through the age of inclusive AI. This might seem like a bit of a topic that is often overlooked within the technical discussions that we're having, because quite often you're looking at technical capability, how we can make AI do certain things, and sometimes the larger social context is mixed within that conversation. Okay. Oh. So, what you're going to see is I'm going to bring up some lessons on the board, and that's going to go on for our next few slides. So, our first lesson here is artificial intelligence is not separate from us, but a reflection of us. And I have some questions. And who loves audience participation? Yay, I can see you're going. All I'd like you to do is to have a raise of hand if you agree with this statement or disagree. So, is it okay? Is it not okay? So, cognitive digital twinning is where we could take everything you've ever done at an organization, all of your emails, all of your conference calls, everything. They've got a lot of data on you and create an AI version of you. So the question I'd like to ask is, if after you've worked at this organization for a while, you decide to leave, you're going on to your next bit, and the organization goes, you know what? We don't actually need to hire another person to replace them. We've got enough data on you. We can create this cognitive digital twin. Would you say that that was okay or not okay? People who think it's okay, put your hand up. Oh, we've got two. You know what? It's one that very often doesn't get a response. So very interesting. So largely people tend to go, oh, I'm not so sure about that. Let's continue and see if we think it's okay or not. What happens if in return for a salary every year, that organization gets to keep your cognitive digital twin, but you get a salary from it? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Oh, I can see some more hands going up now. We're starting to get into juicy territory. So, what happens if your cognitive digital twin that you've got at one of these organizations wins an award? It wins an award. They say, you know what? They've done such good work and you're entitled to that prize money. Is that okay? Hands in the air. Oh, someone's got two hands in the air at the back there. I like this. So, what happens if your cognitive digital twin at one of these companies starts engaging in fraudulent activities? It commits crimes, and now that organization wants to hold you responsible. Particularly person who had two hands at the back. You happy for the awards money? You're happy for the going to the prison part? Let's see, hands in the air. Is it okay? Oh.
I would qualify that with I would expect that my company would shield me because I was doing it while I was there.
I see. I love your response. Thank you very much. So we're starting to get into the territory of AI ethics, and I love this as a conceptual game to start thinking about how we want to lead within a world where AI is going to reshape the way that we participate. So I like this slide from an IBM presentation in 1979, which was a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer should never make a management decision. That is one of the biggest differences between human workforce and AI agents, is you cannot hold a computer accountable. So we need to think about this when we're making our leadership decisions. So our next lesson is AI perpetuates societal norms and values. And I want to be able to go through a little bit of context about why I'm talking about inclusive AI. And I am very aware of the optics. I am a white guy, not as tall as the people that have been before, got a round face that makes people trust me, always get asked for directions, give them even if I don't know the way. Why do I care about inclusive AI? What's the factor for me? Well, for a bit of context here, before that first slide, I grew up in some very peculiar situations. My brother was born 16 weeks premature. He was the most premature baby to survive in the UK when he was born, and my mum didn't know she was pregnant with him till the day she had him. We grew up in a situation where we were very close to the breadline through lots of our childhood, and no older sibling wants to be outdone by their younger brother. So I then went and had 3 years in and out of hospital where I used to have seizures while I slept from the ages from 15 to 18. sometimes up to 3 times a night, 3 times a week, which very much impacted my education, as you can imagine, as well as undiagnosed dyslexia. So when I came out of school with very little to my name. And I was signing on at the job centre and I came across a charity and they were basically saying, you know what, we'll take you on one of our courses. It's free for you to be able to do it. And the only reason I went on this course was to stop the job centre being on my back for 12 weeks. That was the only reason. From that course, it was an amazing opportunity because it genuinely helped me turn my life and situation around, my circumstances in a very positive way. So the Prince's Trust, I went on their employment program and was then supported by them. For all of my sins, I then went on to work for them for the next 6 years. First of all, starting off doing outreach in things like prisons, gang interventions, job centres, working with some of the most marginalised communities within London. I then went on to deliver those programs and then went on to develop the STEM strategy for that organisation. How do we connect people who are sometimes the furthest away from opportunities into a sector that is inherently very academic, very elitist? And it's at this point that I realised having an accent that I can get away with where no one can identify where it's from and being very palatable to people who have money and fundraising, I was often rolled out in front of the charity as this representation because we're all egotistical. We all like people that look, sound and feel like ourselves. So you can imagine sending me out to fundraisers was a great way to be able to kind of get money into the organisation. Even if I'm not as representative of, or maybe a more palatable version of lots of the groups that the organisation worked with. I then went on to do lots of digital transformation projects across the world for different organisations. But this first slide here is where I built an AI assistant. This was when I was on the Prince's Trust course, and it was basically an Alexa 3 years before Alexa was released. And I did this on a couple of days where I was just chilling, trying to figure out how to be able to play with code. And it was my first experience of designing like a Jarvis-like system. I then went on to do a TED Talk in 2015 at 24 years old, being able to go, AI is going to change the way that our socioeconomics work. There is going to be less human labor required in the workforce. 30% of all tasks that we currently know could be automated within the next 10 years. We need to change our socioeconomic models because the people who are most disadvantaged when technology evolves are those who are often, it combines with other digital inequalities, which we'll go into in a second. Then I decided to set up my business a week before we went into a global pandemic. Can I hear a way? Yay! Timings are everything. And obviously you can imagine at that time, everybody was super interested in training and facilitation. Yeah, right. So I started developing conferences in VR and designing virtual environments and virtual spaces. Did that for a few years before we came into ChatGPT territory. The time that I've been preparing for all of my life, I'd done this TED Talk 10 years earlier and then was like, I've been waiting for this moment the whole of my life. So I started helping SMEs to be able to implement AI and automation. And this started turning into businesses where we go, well, actually people want training on it and into what is now executive leadership training. So why is this important? What am I trying to get at here? Well, I think what's really important to recognize is the mindset that's required in a digital workforce is very different than what was required in an industrial workforce. An industrial workforce made us perceive ourselves as individuals rather than as a society. So in an industrial economy, essentially, people filled the gaps in machine capability. What we used to do is we treated people like they were machines. We educated like they were machines. We taught them that they needed to retain information, regurgitate information, recite information, essentially things that are very tailored to how machines work. And essentially, this became our model of leadership where it was about outputs, control, making sure that every part of that process does exactly what we want. We wanted that machine-like quality within people. So what changes in the what changes when AI comes along and all of a sudden machines start to machine better than people do? Well, that means that anything that was easy to automate, things that are repetitive, that involve a lot of text that you could teach an intern to do, are prime things for AIs to now be able to do. So this erodes the need for humans to be able to operate that machinery as we get better and better. And we have to remember, that when it comes to AI automation, that the worst these tools are ever going to be is today. It's only an upward trend from that moving forward. So we're going to see this one-size-fits-all start to change in the way that we work. And that means that the most valuable skills to you in a digital economy are things that are hard for machines to be able to do. I put these into the 5 C's, which is communication, creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and curiosity. Those aspects are what make human beings really valuable within the workforce, and those are the skills we have to cultivate. They were also the skills that were beaten out of you within the education system. And now we're in a situation where we're trying to bring these back, which involves a completely different form of leadership. So your edge in an AI-driven world is not knowing what, because an AI can get that what a lot quicker than you can. You know, you don't need to retain all that information. It's being able to make sense of that information. So the value of a human being within that digital workforce is human-centric skills. They are things that make us human, that are useful to us. So it lies in our ability to be creative, our emotional decision-making, our adaptability. And we need to be able to get people to be able to have skills that machines can't do. So why is AI such a game changer within this space? Why is it different than every other technology that we've seen? And that's because AI is the first tool that is actively able to make a decision and generate actions independently of human beings. So if you think about every other piece of technology, you know, whatever it might be, it takes a human operator to be able to do something with it. It doesn't matter whether it was a Word document to a bomb. Like it's all takes a human decision. AI can make those decisions without necessarily having a human being there. Can't take accountability, which we've already noted. So I promise this is one of my only 90 style slide where there's a lot of text on it. I apologize, but you know, I wanted to fit it all in. So why are we afraid of AI? And this is because AI threatens our humanity on so many different ways, particularly as we start to look into our workforce. So things like, this is a framework by an economist called Manfred Max Neef. And he says, basically, these are the things that we need within a society. This is what we use to participate. And this is where I think AI is a threat to all of them, particularly if we don't understand it and if we don't cultivate it with the values that we want it to be able to have. So the things like sustenance, you know, people are worried about their jobs, being able to get clarity, deep fake information. We've already seen it where people are looking at video and they go, did an AI generate that? Did a person generate that? What was the purpose behind that? And that gives us no sense of shared reality. Community, you know, are we connecting with people? Are we connecting with robots? What difference does that make? And purpose. We've all grown up within this world where we've been cultivated as these machine-like beings to be able to go and do that stuff. And now we have an AI that can do it better than us. What does that mean for me as a person? How do I see myself within the role of society? So I said a little bit about this earlier, but every time the role of the power of digital increases, it combines with pre-existing inequality and magnifies them. So this was a Google campaign in 2013. I saw it on a tube station and took a picture back then. And it says, knowledge is not always within reach with the not crossed out. And that's fine if you have access to that technology. I used to work with young people where an employer would go, just get them to pop their CV across to me and I'll guarantee them an interview, which sounds like a great gig, other than the fact that the young people I was dealing with had a cracked phone with no data storage on it, and they were trying to write their CV through a mobile device. Access to technology and participation very much depends on who has that access. So it is in reach if you have an internet-enabled device, know how to be able to use Google, the skills to be able to do it, the confidence to be able to do it. So this one is going to throw you from a loop from everything that we're talking about. Another hands in the air one. If you require glasses to have full vision, are you disabled? Let's say hand in the air if you think that someone who has to wear glasses for full vision is disabled. I'd say that's about a 50-50 split. It's pretty close. So This is where we start to look at the social context of AI and how it can change the way that we operate. So a disability is what affects the individual, the situation that an individual experiences. But disablement, we could all experience at any particular point. So disablement is more about the societal context in which we exist. Glasses is a really good example because if I look at participation, I could split that into these different stages. So if I was to take our glasses example, attitudinal. Do people with glasses face barriers because they're considered to be less hardworking than other people? Do we consider them to be less capable? There's not really a lot of attitudinal barriers that we have around people that wear glasses. Technological. Are glasses widely acceptable, easy to be able to access? Generally speaking, yes, there's a cost attached, but we can get access to the technology. It's not 100%, but it's definitely capable. Financial. The cost of glasses isn't so much that it's going to send someone bankrupt, so therefore they should be able to get those. And there's schemes in place to be able to help people from all backgrounds to be able to get glasses. Social barriers. Once again, we're not going into situations where we go, well, you know what, we're not going to give this person a job because they're wearing glasses. And I'm not really sure if I'm into that. Like, how do we know that they're as good as the other candidates that don't have glasses on? Enablement. So it could be a case of going, well, actually, we don't stop people with glasses being able to access certain opportunities. They're still allowed to drive. They're still allowed to be fully participate within society. And policy. Maybe some ones around driving with glasses, but there isn't policy barriers that stop people being able to participate. And these barriers, if we're designing inclusive AI, we should be designing AIs that reduce these barriers to participation. That's how we can make sure that AI is used as a force for inclusion and not for a force that stops people being able to participate. So I've kind of gone through these, but if we look at AI, we can go from an attitudinal point of view, we can use it to be able to help identify unconscious biases. From a technological point of view, we can adapt it to the individual. So we could take an interface, let's say one of my VR worlds, and I've got someone who's neurodiverse, and let's say they are someone on one side who is autistic, and I've got someone on the other side who is ADHD. Maybe that person wants to be able to have a muted environment. They want it customized to the individual, less overwhelming. Maybe on the ADHD side, they want brighter colors. They want more moving parts. They want it to be very engaging. And in an ideal world, those two people should be able to be in the same virtual space, but perceive it based on their own preferences. And this is where when we start to design for preference, not just ability, we can benefit a much wider audience. From a financial point of view, we can use it to help identify the people that need the greatest support. We can use it from a social point of view to look at dialogues, have underrepresented people be able to have their voices wider heard. And once again, from like a policy point of view, being able to make sure people from diverse abilities are able to access opportunity. And from a policy point of view, making sure that those policies are fair and equitable to all individuals. When you design for the extremes, you benefit the mean. And what I mean from that is we all can benefit from accommodations that are designed to support marginalised people. I always like using the example of the remote control. The remote control was designed to support people with accessibility challenges to be able to change the television. Yet everybody benefits from a remote control. We have to remember that when we design these things inclusively, we include a much wider audience, but it also benefits your everyday general person because we can all benefit from those accommodations. We're really not prepared for a world where the cost of something is completely devoid from the time taken to make it. So 300 million jobs are at risk of displacement by AI and automation by 2030. That's Goldman Sachs' prediction. It's about 9% of the global workforce. My whole thing is going, if we need to be able to skill people to take their place in the digital revolution. We need to be able to provide the support, the accommodation to be able to make that happen. If we look at the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, we changed the schooling system, we changed our economic models, we changed our social models in order to be able to help people transition from an agricultural to an industrial one. And yet we're very slow on the uptake of transitioning from an industrial world to a digital world. So my statement here is, if a socio-economic system can't accommodate varying levels of participation or produce socially acceptable outcome, it isn't just flawed, it's entirely obsolete. And I know that sounds like a big statement, reinvent the economy, but how can we do it when we're developing a technology that risks automating 30% of all tasks that we see today without changing the socioeconomic models that enable that to happen. And technology is always a driver for social change. So if your AI and your opportunities and the things that you are designing are not lifting up those furthest from opportunity, it's just another tool for powerful people to already utilize. Progress isn't progress if it always benefits the same people. We need to make sure that everybody is accommodated within that technological development. To end, this is one of my idols and someone that I learned a lot from, the late Ken Robinson. Very fortunate to be able to meet him a long time ago. But human communities depend on a diversity of talent, not a single conception of ability. The heart of that challenge is to reconstitute our sense of ability and intelligence. No more is this true than in the digital age and the age of AI. I hope you found that interesting, useful, a different perspective, maybe something that you've not heard before. If you're interested in being able to get in touch, you can more than welcome to connect with me. That QR code on the left-hand side will take you through to all my stuff. And if you're interested in developing, I have an AI tool that helps develop an AI leadership roadmap for your organization. 30 questions. It will help you to be able to get a tailored one, utilizing AI to be able to design that. Thank you all so much for your time, energy, interest, and I look forward to catching up with you all very soon. Thank you.